What if the most reviled disciple was the only one invited behind the veil? If the hand that betrayed opened a hidden door? We stand at a textual threshold. The Gospel of Judas, a 2nd century dialogue, surviving only in a tattered Coptic manuscript Codex, Tchacos, brought to public light in 2006. Radiocarbon and paleographic analyses date the Codex to roughly the 3rd–4th century CE, while internal features point to a Greek original composed decades earlier amid diverse, competing Christian theologies. Instead of a melodrama of treachery, the text reframes Judas as the lone disciple who truly knows the enigmatic teacher. That inversion unsettles long-settled boundary lines. Will you step into this textual labyrinth and weigh its voice with both scholarly rigor and contemplative openness? Begin with sand, secrecy, and slow decay. The papyrus reportedly unearthed in Egypt in the 1970s entered the gray antiquities market. Years in a humid safety deposit box darkened and embrittled its leaves. A failed high-price sale in the 1980s prolonged neglect until restoration efforts preceded a 2006 publication. The narrative of Vatican fear is mostly modern dramatic packaging. There is no record of medieval suppression campaigns against this text. Rather, its limited circulation and fragile material history explain its absence. Irenaeus of Lyons, c. 180 CE, denounces a Gospel of Judas in against heresies, signaling early polemical rejection, not covert preservation. The climate was a contested ecosystem, proto-Orthodox communities promoting episcopal cohesion, and mystical or speculative groups mapping cosmic hierarchies in elaborate, mythic vocabularies. Hold the manuscript like a cracked mirror. Gaps, stains, lacunae where entire lines dissolve into fibrous dusk. Fragmentation forces editors to bracket conjectural reconstructions. Certain phrases, such as Judas being addressed with ambiguous terms for spirit or daemon, were initially misread, later re-evaluated through multispectral imaging and comparative lexicon. The Coptic is a translation layer. Beneath it, a lost Greek substrate. Above it, our modern editorial apparatus, 3 strata of mediation. Lexical markers self-generated. Adamas, luminaries. Sackless situate the work within a Sethian-colored cosmological idiom, without fully matching any single known Sethian treatise. Reliability varies. Some cosmological catalogs are intact. Crucial interpretive moments, especially around Judas's ultimate fate, are partially lost. The text silences become interpretive chambers where caution must outweigh enthusiasm. The disciples gathered. Jesus laughs not in contempt, but as a narrative motif, signaling misrecognition, familiar in other revelatory dialogues. The others partake in a Eucharistic or sacrificial misunderstanding tied to offering animals. Judas steps aside, perceiving a tension between literal rites and an interiorized gnosis. In the surviving lines, Jesus tells Judas he will exceed the others because he will sacrifice the man that clothes me, a phrase many scholars read as releasing the teacher's divine identity from material enclosure. Judas becomes an inverted elect, the mirror image of fidelity, faithfulness expressed as the courage to enact a painful rupture. Archons, cosmic rulers shaping material generations. Sackless Aramaic fool denotes a demiurgic figure. Adamas, a luminous primordial human template. Judas frozen in a single gesture, the kiss, the purse, the turned profile. The Gospel of Judas offers no later flourishing iconographic school. Its alternative portrait remained visually unincorporated. Absence in major artistic cycles suggests the text's non-transmission more than active suppression. The result is a symbolic negative space, an empty niche where an image could have formed. This imageless survival preserved conceptual fluidity without entrenched iconography, The rehabilitated Judas stays a mirror for interpretive projection. The text thus becomes an imaginal aperture, a place where betrayal, insight, complicity, and transcendence cohabit without being flattened into a single painted trope. Picture a descent into a quiet chamber, outer disciples at the perimeter, an inner dialogue unfolding between teacher and singled-out listener. Esoteric readings treat Judas here as a threshold guardian catalyst whose betrayal resembles alchemical dissolution, the retort in which a gross compound breaks so a subtler essence is released. The text frames privileged revelation privately. Sequencing of questions and cosmic expositions mimics graduated unveiling. Jesus enumerates luminous realms and generations, exposing the inadequacy of surface ritual. Judas' act, then, becomes an initiatory hinge, externally scandalous, internally purposeful. The manuscript never praises betrayal as ethical good. It recontextualizes an act within a cosmological economy where separation enables ascent. Distinguish this from later romanticizations projecting secret orders or elaborate hidden rites the text itself does not detail. In its cosmology, true lineage is traced not by institutional continuity, but by luminous origin. The text juxtaposes mortal generations, shaped by errant rulers, with an immortal realm source of the great or holy generation. Sacrifice, misunderstood by the other disciples, becomes, in the Judas dialogue, an allegory of releasing entrapment. Jesus' laughter underscores distance between symbolic intent and literal enactment. The Gospel critiques a developing emphasis on martyrdom or external offering, redirecting salvific focus toward interior knowledge of origin. The sacrifice of the man who clothes me reframes passion, not as appeasing a wrathful power, but as strategic disengagement from corruptible structures. Thus, the narrative shifts theological gravity from juridical transaction to ontological unveiling, a move coherent with broader Gnostic soteriological patterns. Judas as archetype of the shadow function. Jungian lenses view the betrayer as the psychic agent that destabilizes outdated identifications, painful yet prerequisite for individuation. Delivering the teacher parallels relinquishing a cherished self-image, so a deeper center emerges. Trickster motifs, e.g., figures who rupture order to birth a higher equilibrium, echo here, though with crucial theological specificity. The text's narrative economy allocates insight to marginal positioning. Judas stands apart, hearing differently. Integration entails acknowledging the inner Judas, the capacity to hand over a comforting but constricting pattern. Without that crisis agent, transformation stagnates. Yet, unintegrated shadow reflex becomes sabotage. The Gospel's Judas sits on the razor's edge between liberating rupture and destructive betrayal. How do we responsibly handle a text long outside the communal mainstream? Diversity of early Christian literature cautions against simplistic canon versus heresy binaries. Ethical engagement means neither sensationalizing alternate voices nor dismissing them reflexively. When encountering a destabilizing idea, pause before labeling it treachery. Ask what inner construct is being handed over. Develop a lexicon where a Judas moment names courageous relinquishment rather than moral collapse. Avoid overcorrection. Rehabilitating Judas does not mandate erasing harm associated with betrayal narratives in communal memory. Instead, hold polarity, communal trust, and transformative rupture. Reading marginalized texts becomes training in nuanced discernment, an archive exercise refining empathy and historical literacy simultaneously. The Gospel participates in intra-Christian debates over the meaning of Jesus' death, contrasting interior liberation against emerging Orthodox emphasis on redemptive suffering. Fragmentary gaps may once have contained ascent instructions paralleling other revelatory dialogues. Absence forbids confident reconstruction. Judas' reframing anticipates later psychological interpretations, wherein spiritual progress requires conscious confrontation with shadow impulses. Lack of developed visual tradition preserved hermeneutic flexibility, Judas remaining conceptual rather than pictorial. Our secure ground is what the extant Coptic lines yield. Every projection beyond must carry provisional labels. The responsible reader moves with a lantern illuminating textually anchored phrases, while acknowledging surrounding darkness without populating it with wishful silhouettes. We return to the threshold question: can a narrative of betrayal conceal a paradoxical transmission of light? The Gospel of Judas offers an arc of descent and return a seed. For those willing to venture deeper, let us linger with the papyrus itself. When dealer Hanna Kostrova placed the Codex in a Long Island safe deposit box during the 1980s, humid air baked the leaves into a chocolate-brown crust. Titles and margins flaked away with every jostle. The asking price, $3 million, proved too steep for academic buyers, so the Codex languished. By the time conservationist Florence Darbra acquired it in 2001, many folios had fused. Infrared photography, ethyl alcohol baths, and painstaking humidification chambers became the only path to legibility. Restoration teams faced a quandary: stabilize brittle fibers or risk further loss by unfolding hidden lines. Each decision echoed the Gospel's own tension: reveal or preserve, sacrifice part to save the whole. In 2006, the first English translation rendered Jesus calling Judas a daemon, prompting headlines that the disciple was labeled a demon even by the rehabilitating text. Months later, comparative Coptic studies by April D. Connick and Marvin Meyer demonstrated the underlying Greek loanword daimon could also mean spirit neutral, or even positive in some philosophical registers. A minor diacritical reparse flipped meaning from condemnation to ambiguous endorsement. This lexical knife edge reveals how one ink blot can sway global perception, reminding us that every reconstruction carries hermeneutic power out of all proportion to the millimeters of papyrus involved. Set the Gospel of Judas beside the Apocryphon of John and the Dialogue of the Savior. All three share a private audience format, cosmological catalogs, and the teacher's signature laughter. Yet Judas alone turns betrayal into sacramental hinge. Thomas hears secret sayings. Mary receives post-resurrection commission. But Judas consents to enact rupture in real time. Some modern mystics weave these strands into a single initiatory progression: Thomas Logos seed, Mary Gnosis bloom, Judas death, rebirth harvest. Canonical scholars warn against stitching separate schools into tidy narrative arcs. Each text arose from its own community's pressures. Still, the braid invites a holistic meditation on multiplicity within early Christian experimentation. Media outlets in 2006 cast the publication as earth-shaking. Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi tempered expectations. The Church, he noted, had long known of the title via Irenaeus. New fragments changed little about settled doctrine. The Pontifical Biblical Commission affirmed Judas' canonical role as archetype of betrayal, while acknowledging historical interest in dissident voices. Theologian Rowan Williams cautioned enthusiasts against binary thinking orthodoxy as tyrant, Gnosticism as hero. The real shockwave was not doctrinal, but existential. Contemporary audiences confronted how chance sand, smugglers, humidity mediates which truths survive. Today, high-resolution scans of Codex Tchacos circulate freely online. Multispectral imaging lets anyone toggle between wavelengths, watching erased ink glow electric green under infrared. Open-source projects, like the Coptic Scriptorium, annotate lexical forms, enabling machine learning tools to cross-index this gospel with the Nag Hammadi library in seconds tasks, once requiring decades of philological labor. Within a generation, Crowdsourced papyrology may surface overlooked fragments in institutional drawers, blurring lines between scholar and seeker. The canon ceases to be a fixed list. It becomes a living dataset, its borders porous, its lacunae marked to be determined. Close your eyes. Imagine a dim corridor lined with brittle papyrus. One leaf bears your most cherished self-story. Behind it, a chamber flickers with untested potential. The guardian is neither angel nor demon, but a mirror shadow shaped like you, whispering. Hand over the form that clothes you. Feel the resistance, the pulse of preservation. Then only if discernment grants consent release the leaf. Listen for the soft laugh of recognition, not scorn, but the crack of a shell. What seed stirs in that hush? Open your eyes, note one belief, ready to compost into fertile dark. Reading marginal texts is not a solitary thrill ride. It is communal fumbling toward larger empathy. Modern theologians such as Elaine Pagels argue that grappling with heterodox voices trains the muscle of pluralistic respect. Integrating Judas, reframing, could temper polarized discourse today, political, religious, or familial, by modeling how supposed villains might carry hidden tasks. A practice. When labeling an opponent, pause to ask, what liberating rupture might this friction hide? Neither excuse harm nor ossify blame. Keep fluidity alive. We have journeyed from desert vault to digital pixel, from brittle leaf to interior mirror. Somewhere between those strata, the figure of Judas flickers, betrayer, catalyst, cipher of shadow work. Which facet, codicological drama, lexical pivot, or meditative release rang true for you? Cast your insight into the comments. Let the archive breathe through collective reflection. The Enchanted archive where ancient texts still breathe. If this extended exploration illuminated new corridors, subscribe, share with a fellow seeker, and ring the bell so you never miss our next threshold crossing. Until then, keep the lamp trimmed at the edge of the archive.